19 years old, two jobs, a criminology degree almost in hand, and a plan to enlist in the United States Air Force. On April 1st, 2024, Sade Robinson is getting dressed for a first date. The man she's agreed to meet is 14 years older than she is, a bartender, lives alone in Milwaukee. A few hours later, her car will be found engulfed in flames 3 miles from his house. Within 24 hours, traces of her will turn up in a park by the lake. Her body will never be recovered in full. This is the story of how an ordinary dating app meetup turned into one of the most high-profile cases in the state of Wisconsin, and of the single piece of evidence that finally settled it. In April of 2024, a young woman named Sade Robinson is living in Milwaukee. She's 19. She rents her own apartment, no roommates, and pays for it herself. For a girl her age, that's rare, but Sade isn't the type to wait for life to fall into place on its own. She studies criminal justice at Milwaukee Area Technical College. She's preparing for a career where one day she'll defend young women just like herself. Sade was born and raised in Milwaukee. From childhood, she was surrounded by women. Her mother, Sheena Scarborough, her grandmother, her aunts, her younger sister Adriana Reams. She called her grandmother her most important person. The older women in the family carried her through school, through the awkward teenage years, through her first adolescent mistakes. Sade gave it back in kind. She always came home. She always texted back. She always found a moment to ask how someone was doing. People close to her say she had a special gift for spotting people who were struggling. In a classroom, in a coffee shop, on the bus. She'd be the first to look up if someone nearby was crying. Sade juggles several jobs. By day, pizza shuttle, a small pizzeria the locals love. In the evenings, a server at a country club. On top of that, she's landed a job at the Town Place Suites by Marriott, working the front desk. It was her first grown-up job in uniform, and she was very proud of it. Co-workers at the hotel later said Sade would show up for her shift a little early, help tidy the lobby, take on paperwork without being asked. People who knew her describe her with the same words: calm, quick to smile, always answers her texts, never goes off the radar. She has a plan for the months ahead. After college, Sade is going to apply for the United States Air Force. Her paperwork is already lined up. She knows which tests to take. Her friends remember her training for the physical requirements, running in the mornings, counting calories, reading up on basic training. With her mother, Sade had a relationship of her own. Sheena Scarborough raised her on her own for most of her daughter's life. They had a tradition. Once a week, usually on Sunday, they'd sit down together and have coffee. There was a corkboard hanging in Sheena's kitchen. Every month, Sade would pin a new note up there with a goal: pass an exam, save a certain amount, run a certain distance, finish a book from her list. By the spring of 2024, some of the notes were already crossed off. Some were still waiting their turn. Sheena later said that after her daughter's death, she couldn't bring herself to look at that board for a long time. Every note had become a reminder of something that would never come true. Sade had one more special person in her life, her young niece, a little girl from her close family. Sade adored her, took her for the weekends, carried her around, posed for pictures with her. The walls of her apartment were covered with the little girl's drawings. Sade called her niece her little one. People close to her say that, watching this child, Sade dreamed that one day she'd have a daughter of her own. But first, school, then service, then everything else. On a shelf in her bedroom, there was a separate box. Inside were notebooks where Sade had laid out her future path point by point. First, join the Air Force in a financial role, then earn a college degree on the military's dime, then maybe start her own business. A 19-year-old girl from Milwaukee was already thinking 10 years out. On April 1st, 2024, Sade is getting ready for her date. She runs into a staff member of her apartment complex in the hallway and shares the news in passing. Tonight she has a first date with a man she met a few days ago at one of Milwaukee's bars. There's excitement in her voice. The staff member wishes her luck and goes about her day. The man Sade is set to meet is named Maxwell Anderson. He's 33. He works as a bartender, has his own car, his own house, and a pleasant smile. Sade knows about him exactly as much as he's chosen to share. She doesn't know that this evening will change everything, and that within a few weeks her name will be in news broadcasts across the country. The man Sade has agreed to meet that evening doesn't look anything like her peers. Maxwell Stephen Anderson was born in May of 1990. By the time he meets Sade, he's 33. He's 14 years older than her, and at the bar where they met, that felt like a plus to her. More mature, calmer, easier to be around. Anderson is tall, 6'1", around 185 centimeters. He lives in a house of his own on the south side of Milwaukee, alone. Things at work look stable too. He's a bartender in Milwaukee. The regulars know him. They smile at him and leave tips. In 2011, Anderson enlisted in the United States Navy. He didn't serve long, less than 9 months, after which he was discharged with a general discharge. It's not a disgrace, but it's nothing to brag about either. Anderson himself rarely talks about that period. In Wisconsin's court records, his name has surfaced several times over the past 10 years. Driving under the influence, disorderly conduct, a complaint from a woman close to him about a domestic incident involving force. In 2019, he's arrested for using force against another man during a quarrel involving his then-girlfriend. Neighbors will later tell police that they sometimes heard noise coming from Anderson's house, and that the lights on the second floor would stay on late into the night. No one called for help. Everyone assumed it was his personal business. Sade doesn't know any of this. She has no reason to pull his criminal record. She sees a charming bartender with an open smile. At Anderson's home, there's a personal collection of kitchen tools. Investigators will later count 51 cutting implements. He has an ex-girlfriend named Chloe Wright. Tied to her is a special place, a small stretch of the lakefront park they used to call the Secret Beach. That place will resurface in this story very soon. But on the day of April 1st, Sade knows nothing about the collection, about Chloe, or about the beach. All she knows is that Maxwell suggested they start the evening at a nice place by the water. Around 6:30, they arrive at Twisted Fisherman, a seafood restaurant in Milwaukee's Harbor District. It's bright inside, soft music is playing. Surveillance cameras catch them at their table. They're eating, talking. The footage shows almost no physical gestures between them, no touching of hands. It's the first date of two people still sizing each other up. Around 9 in the evening, the pair moves on to a second bar, Duke's on Water. The atmosphere here is different. Younger crowd, loud, beer pong tables set up in one of the areas. Sade and Maxwell play. A camera in the room catches brief moments of their evening. From the outside, it looks like an ordinary date that's going pretty well. Around 9:30, they leave the bar. Anderson's car heads toward his house on the south side of Milwaukee. Sade is with him. Around this same time, a camera on one of the neighboring houses catches silhouettes in a second-floor window of Anderson's house, 2 of them. What they're doing is impossible to tell from the recording. The image is too dark, the window too far away. But this is the last image that shows Sade Robinson alive. Her own car, a Honda Civic, 2020 model, is parked at Anderson's house. That's the last point at which her car is still standing on its own wheels. She doesn't send any messages during these hours. Her mother, Sheena, doesn't get the usual, "I made it home, all good." Neither do her friends. That's not like Sade. But on the first night of the date, the family doesn't suspect anything yet. They figure they got to talking, got caught up, nothing unusual. By morning, that silence will turn into the first warning sign. Only the family won't be the first to learn something is wrong. The app will. Sade had been sharing her location with her loved ones through the Life 360 app for a long time. A normal habit for a girl her age. Her mother could always see where her daughter was, and the other way around. On the night between April 1st and 2nd, the signal from her phone unexpectedly starts to move. Slowly at first, through the streets of Milwaukee, then the route veers south. At 2:45 in the morning, Sade's phone shows up at Warnemont Park in the city of Cudahy, on the shore of Lake Michigan, south of Milwaukee. Sade had never been to this park before. 8 minutes after the phone records that location, a city surveillance camera catches a figure on its frame. The time is 2:53. The figure is moving along the shoreline toward the water. The recording quality is poor. The face isn't visible, only the silhouette. At 4:35 in the morning, Sade's phone in that same park stops transmitting a signal entirely. Maybe it was turned off. Maybe it ran out of battery. Maybe it was thrown into the water. Investigators will never know. Warnemont Park is the very same secret beach that, until then, only a couple of people knew about. Specifically, Anderson's ex-girlfriend, Chloe Wright. Nobody ends up there by accident. Only people who know the place go there. Sade's family is still asleep at this point. Sheena has no idea that her daughter, the one who always answers her messages, has already gone silent for hours. In a few hours, the first phone call will come, and an ordinary morning will turn into the most terrifying day of her life. That call doesn't come to Sheena. It comes to the Milwaukee police. On the morning of April 2nd, 2024, residents of a block on North 29th Street, near house number 1800, call the fire department. There's a car burning on the side of the road. The flames have already broken out of the cabin. Black smoke is drifting over the rooftops. Fire crews arrive quickly. They put it out. Once the fire is knocked down, it's clear that almost nothing of the interior is left. The windows have shattered. The metal is warped. The plastic has melted. The Milwaukee police run the registration. The car is a Honda Civic, 2020 model, registered to Sade Robinson, the same car that, the night before, had been parked at Anderson's house. The fire investigator walks through the cabin. On the passenger side, he picks up a distinct chemical smell. According to the experts, the car didn't catch fire on its own. The fire was set deliberately. Officers go through what's left. Under the driver's seat, they find Sade's purse. Personal items still inside, ID, bank cards. That immediately rules out one of the most obvious theories: robbery. In the trunk, they discover her clothing. An odd detail: the clothes are tossed in haphazardly, as if someone had crammed them in a great hurry. Sade herself is not in the car. The spot where the car was abandoned is exactly 3 miles from Maxwell Anderson's house, meaning the car's owner has vanished, while the car itself was driven out of the Warnemont area, taken to another part of the city, set on fire, and abandoned. On foot. Whoever it was, they knew where to go. Whoever it was, they didn't want the car staying near their own house. Investigators don't have a name yet, but the outline around that name is already starting, slowly, to tighten. That same morning of April 2nd, Sheena Scarborough, Sade's mother, calls her daughter, once, twice, a third time. Sade doesn't answer. Sheena sends a short text. No read mark, no reply. Not even the usual smiley her daughter always managed to send back even on the run. Every mother knows her child. Sheena can feel it. Something is wrong, and she feels it before she has the first bit of proof. By midday, Sheena is already calling Sade's friends. Nobody has seen her. Nobody has heard from her since the night before. The family pieces together that yesterday, Sade had a date with a man named Maxwell, and that none of her family had ever met this man before. Sheena and her relatives file a missing persons report. The Milwaukee police take that report and quickly realize the name of the missing person and the name of the owner of the burned-out car match. The same Honda Civic that had been doused on 29th Street that morning belongs to the missing girl. These aren't two separate incidents anymore. This is one case. On that same day, April 2nd, in Warnemont Park, on the shore of that same lake, a search team makes its first find. It's biological material, which gets sent to the lab. DNA analysis confirms a match. These are the remains of Sade Robinson. The family isn't told everything at once. The information is given carefully, in pieces, to soften the blow at least a little. But there's no softening something like this. In less than 2 days, an ordinary first date has turned into something Sheena Scarborough doesn't yet have the words for. Her healthy, smiling daughter, who was planning to join the Air Force, has vanished. Her car has been burned. Her traces have been found in a park. And missing from this picture, for now, is one thing: the name of the person who will answer for all of it. That name won't take long. On April 4th, 2024, the Milwaukee police arrest Maxwell Stephen Anderson. Formally, at this stage, the charge isn't murder, but a narrower suspicion: arson of a vehicle. That's enough to take him into custody and hold him while the rest of the circumstances are sorted out. In his first conversations with detectives, Anderson takes a simple stance. Sade left his place on the evening of April 1st. After that, he didn't see her, and he has no idea what happened to her. The story sounds calm, only it doesn't line up with several things at once. It doesn't line up with the data from the Life 360 app, which showed Sade's phone heading to Warnemont Park in the early hours. It doesn't line up with the location of her car, which ended up abandoned and torched 3 miles from his house. It doesn't line up with the fact that he used to take his ex-girlfriend to that very same secret beach. On April 12, 2024, the police officially confirm Sade Robinson is dead. That same day, Maxwell Anderson is hit with an expanded list of charges: first-degree intentional homicide, mutilation of a corpse, hiding a corpse, arson of property. The story immediately spreads beyond Milwaukee. Local news picks it up first, and within a few days the case is being discussed on national networks. The phrase "first date from a dating app" becomes a grim shorthand. Sheena Scarborough sees the suspect's name and face up close for the first time. The very man with whom her daughter had gone on a simple date. A bartender, 33 years old, a house on the south side. The investigators have more circumstantial evidence than direct, for now. There's no weapon, there are no witnesses to the moment itself. To turn those circumstantial threads into a guilty verdict, the prosecution will have to do something that usually happens in movies, not in an actual courtroom. That non-obvious link is found by a detective named Joanne Donner. Donner is an experienced investigator with Milwaukee County, and she's the one sent to give Sade's burned-out Honda Civic a thorough look. The car has burned almost down to the frame. Most of the evidence inside has been destroyed by the flames. But Donner notices a detail that makes her stop. The driver's seat has frozen in one position. The fire damaged the adjustment mechanism and locked the seat exactly where it had been at the moment of the fire. And it's pushed all the way back, set for someone tall. Sade Robinson was a short young woman. If she had been the one driving, the seat would have been pulled closer. Donner takes an identical car of the same model and year and runs a simple experiment. First, her assistant, about Sade's height, sits down in the driver's seat. With the seat in that position, her feet don't reach the pedals. Her arms can only reach the wheel fully extended. Driving like that is impossible. Then, a tall detective takes the wheel. For him, the seat is just right. Comfortable, foot moving freely on the pedals, posture natural. The investigator's conclusion is dry and precise. The last person to drive that car was at least 6 feet tall, about 183 centimeters. Sade wasn't that tall. Maxwell Anderson, on the other hand, was 6'1", according to his own paperwork. That experiment in court will become one of the strongest moments of the prosecution. With no eyewitnesses, no video of the act itself, no confession, Detective Donner takes an ordinary car seat and turns it into a witness with something to say. The seat says one thing. It wasn't Sade behind the wheel, but that alone still isn't enough to prove guilt against a man who is denying everything. After the seat come more pieces of evidence. Anderson's neighbors tell the police something strange. Their own trash bin had foreign items in it, as if someone had stepped out of the house next door at night and quickly gotten rid of things that could give him away. Among those items, a gray men's jacket. The jacket is sent to the lab. Examiners find traces of biological material on the fabric. The comparison is quick. It's Sade Robinson's DNA. The jacket belongs to Anderson, and on it is a genetic trace of the dead girl. In parallel, investigators dig through his phone. Most of the data has been wiped manually, but deleted files on a smartphone almost never disappear completely. From the memory, several photos are recovered. In one of them, Sade is in his house, a photo that, according to the experts, dates to a time when she was no longer alive. Anderson had deleted that photo, but not for good. Next, city cameras. In the morning hours of April 2nd, shortly after her car caught fire, one of the cameras on a city bus catches a man with a large backpack. It's Anderson himself. He's walking back toward his neighborhood, carrying something in the backpack, moving with the steady stride of a man with a plan. In his house, officers also find biological traces on the walls. For a while, this looks like the strongest piece of evidence yet, but the lab tells another story. The material is not Sade's, but his own dog's. What works for the prosecution stays in. What doesn't gets dropped honestly. Together, the evidence adds up to a heavy picture, but there's no direct recording of the moment of Sade's death anywhere. The prosecution will have to prove everything through a chain of circumstantial details. And there's still one more unexpected link to come in that chain. Before that link surfaces, the investigators come back to Anderson's house itself. The home on 14th Street looks, from the outside, like an ordinary 2-story house in old Milwaukee. Inside, the picture is different. Officers open up the attic and find a recess behind the wooden paneling that's almost impossible to spot if you're not looking for it. Inside the recess, plastic sheeting, garbage bags, cleaning tools. On the handles of the tools, Anderson's fingerprints. On the stairs leading up to the attic, they find hairs. In the bathroom drain, examiners collect organic residue. The analysis shows traces of biological material partially broken down by household chemicals. The pattern of buildup shows the drain had been cleaned more than once, and with more than one brand of cleaner. In the kitchen, a powerful range hood is running. The fridge is nearly empty. Down in the basement, there's a large jug of bleach, half empty. The picture the forensic team puts together speaks for itself. The house had been thoroughly cleaned to hide traces. From the surrounding properties, footage from private cameras is collected. On one of them, you can see Sade's car driving away from Anderson's house on the night between April 1st and 2nd. Behind the wheel, the silhouette of a tall person. An hour later, the same car comes back from a different direction. An hour after that, it leaves again, for the last time. It's almost a storyboard. Only the face in the dark still isn't visible. And that's when the unexpected link finally enters the case. A young woman named Chloe Wright comes forward to investigators. Until that point, no one in the case had spoken her name. Chloe is Maxwell Anderson's ex-girlfriend. She had dated him before he met Sade and knew his habits well. Her words will later be repeated in the courtroom. Chloe tells the investigators something that becomes a gift for the case. She and Maxwell had a special place of their own, a quiet, rarely visited stretch of shoreline in the southern part of Warnemont Park. They called it the Secret Beach. You don't take random people there. Only the people who know the place by heart, the people for whom it means something, go there. For Anderson, it meant enough that he had told someone close to him about it. And it was to that very same shore, on the night between April 1st and 2nd, that Sade Robinson's phone traveled. To that very spot, the figure that walked toward the water at 2:53 in the morning was heading. The link becomes direct. The killer hadn't picked a random patch of lakefront. He'd picked a place that only he knew. Added to Chloe's testimony are new finds along the shore. On April 18, 2024, more remains are discovered along the shoreline of Lake Michigan. Tests confirm it's Sade. On May 16th, traces of her are found at Waukegan Beach in the neighboring state of Illinois. And again, her DNA. Sade Robinson's remains had drifted along about 100 miles of shoreline. The most important piece is never recovered. Sade's body is never found in full. The exact instrument that caused her death, also never identified. For her mother, Sheena Scarborough, this becomes a personal grief with no end. Her daughter still has no full peace, and on the day of sentencing, she will ask for one thing only. Between Anderson's arrest in April 2024 and the start of the trial, more than a year passes. The trial begins in 2025 in Milwaukee County Circuit Court. Presiding is Judge Laura Crivello. She's an experienced judge, and this case is one of the highest profile of her career. The jury is drawn from county residents, 9 women and 3 men. The prosecution lays out its cards, one by one. The Life 360 data, the Warnemont Park camera recording, Detective Donner's seat experiment, the gray jacket with the DNA, the deleted photos from the phone, the city bus footage, Chloe Wright's testimony about the secret beach. Each piece of evidence on its own is just a thread, but the prosecutor weaves them into one tightly twisted rope. The defense goes the opposite way. Anderson's attorneys remind the jury that the weapon was never found. There's no definitive forensic determination of cause of death. Sade's body was never found in full. There are no eyewitnesses to the act itself. Their argument: under those conditions, no person should be handed a life sentence. Anderson himself keeps a stone face throughout the trial, doesn't take the witness stand, and exercises his right to remain silent. The trial is followed across the country. Court TV is doing live coverage. The team behind CBS's 48 Hours is putting together a major documentary piece. The names Sade Robinson and Maxwell Anderson are now known far beyond Wisconsin. On June 6, 2025, the jury withdraws to deliberate. For a case this complex, days of debate could lie ahead. In practice, they'll need less than an hour, and that 1 hour says a great deal about the fact that for those 12 people, the picture had already come together completely. But before they put it together, two more powerful arguments are heard in the courtroom. In his opening statement, the prosecutor speaks to the jury almost quietly. He says he won't show them video of the moment of Sade's death. He won't lay a weapon on the table. The girl's body still hasn't been found in full. And that, he says, is exactly why he is asking the jury to look not at any single piece of evidence, but at all of it together. One thread won't make a rope. All of them will. In response, the defense's opening statement leans on the absence of direct proof. The attorney says the prosecution is building a house out of guesses, and every brick can be questioned. A seat that anyone could have moved. A jacket that could have ended up in someone else's trash by chance. A figure by the water who can't be identified. The defense asks the jury not to confuse probability with certainty. Then come the cross-examinations. The prosecutor walks Detective Donner through her experiment step by step. The defense asks about margins of error and admissibility. The DNA expert explains exactly how the genetic material ended up on the jacket and why a mix-up isn't possible. Chloe Wright holds her ground calmly, gives short answers to the defense's leading questions. Her main answer, you don't find that beach by accident. In his closing argument, the prosecutor returns to a single image. He reminds the jury that Sade Robinson, at 19, was studying to become a criminologist, that she wanted one day to defend young women just like herself. Right now, he says, you have a chance to defend her. In its closing, the defense returns to the phrase reasonable doubt and asks the jury for the courage to acknowledge the gaps in the case. After those statements, the jury heads off for that very deliberation. After that 1 hour, the jurors return. The foreman stands. A complete silence falls over the courtroom. Sade's family is in the front rows. Sheena Scarborough is holding the hand of 17-year-old Adriana Reams, Sade's younger sister. A few seats down, Sade's father, Carlos Robinson. On the other side of the aisle, Maxwell Anderson in inmate's clothing, with a detached expression on his face. The foreman begins to read the verdict. On the first count, first-degree intentional homicide, guilty. On the second, mutilation of a corpse, guilty. On the third, hiding a corpse, guilty. On the fourth, arson of property, guilty. On every count of the indictment, no acquittals, no partial agreements, no alternative readings. Sheena Scarborough can't hold back her tears. She weeps quietly, holding Adriana close. Carlos Robinson lowers his head and slowly nods. Anderson holds the exact same expression he's worn through the entire trial. No emotion, no visible regret, no reaction at all to what has just been said about him. The attorneys notice. So do the journalists and so do the jurors. Many of them have the same impression. A man who has just been found guilty in the death of a young woman and the desecration of her remains doesn't look broken or shaken. That will become one of the defining details of the whole trial. One of the reporters will later write that, across all those weeks in the courtroom, he never once saw a flicker of feeling in the convicted man. The face stayed the same, distant and indifferent. The family steps out of the courtroom into the hallway. They're surrounded by cameras. Sheena Scarborough says briefly that there's a little more justice in the world now, but Sade still isn't coming back. Adriana will later accept her older sister's diploma in her place. Everything Sade had been working toward through all those years of school will turn into a posthumous ceremony. There's still a little time before the main hearing where the sentence will be announced. And at that hearing, Sheena will say something to the convicted man's face that perhaps had never come out of her mouth before. August 1st, 2025, Milwaukee County Circuit Court. The room is full. There are reserved rows for the press. The Robinson family sits in the front. Anderson, in the same restrained outfit, sits at the defense table. Sheena Scarborough is the first to speak. She stands, turns toward the convicted man. Her voice is quiet but firm. She says a sentence that will spread through every American news outlet within hours. "You treated my daughter like she was nothing," she says. After a pause, she adds one personal request. Her daughter still has not been laid fully to rest. Part of Sade has not been found. Sheena asks him to name the place where the last piece of her is. At least give us that. Carlos Robinson, Sade's father, speaks briefly and heavily. He believes the convicted man deserves the harshest punishment the law allows. Adriana Reams, the younger sister, says that since Sade's death, she's afraid to meet new people. She asks the judge not to leave the convicted man any chance of parole. One after another, Sade's grandmother, her aunts, and two of her closest friends step up to the microphone. The grandmother says she has neither tears left nor strength left to stay silent. A friend from college says Sade had plans for the next 5 years, and that she'll now have to live each one of those years for the both of them. The convicted man is given the floor. He stands, looks straight ahead, and says in a level voice, "I did not commit these crimes, and I plan to file an appeal." That's where the speech ends. No apology, no mention of Sade by name. Judge Laura Crivello answers him out loud. She says she sees no trace of remorse in his behavior, and then she pronounces the sentence: life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. The place of incarceration is set as Dodge Correctional Institution in the city of Waupun, Wisconsin. The hearing is closed. Anderson is led away. Sade's family stays in the courtroom with their grief, and with one question still open. The story of Sade Robinson doesn't end with the announcement of the sentence. It stays with the city for a long time. At Pizza Shuttle, where Sade had worked in September of 2024, a large mural appeared on the wall featuring her portrait. In the painting, her smile, the one her coworkers and regulars remembered. Anyone driving past sees her face. In Warnemont Park, on the very stretch of shore that became the last point of her story, a memorial bench has been installed. That quiet place is now tied to her name, not as a tragedy, but as remembrance. Pink flowers have been planted nearby. Hundreds of Milwaukee residents come out to a rally outside Anderson's house. They show up in pink, Sade's favorite color. That's where the phrase "pink walkout" comes from. Pink becomes the calling card of a movement that brings together family, friends, and ordinary people from the city. On social media, the hashtag Justice for Sade grows in parallel. Memories, photos, and videos are gathered under it. Public figures, journalists, and activists join in. From a local tragedy, Sade's name turns into a national topic. Sheena Scarborough doesn't go back to her former life. She launches a program to help families of victims of serious crimes. Together with one of the representatives in the Wisconsin state legislature, she creates a working group focused on violence against Black women and girls. From a private family story, Sade's name becomes a public symbol. At one of her press conferences, Sheena says a line that's later quoted in the local papers: "As long as I'm breathing, my daughter will not be reduced to one line in a police report." Sade's case becomes a national conversation about how dangerous something that looks ordinary can be. Meeting at a bar, chatting on an app, going on a first date. Across various podcasts and talk shows, the same questions keep coming up. How to vet a person before meeting them, who to tell about a date, what to keep on your phone. In the Wisconsin legislature, preliminary discussions begin around a bill that some are calling Sade's Law. The idea is simple: require dating platforms to share certain basic information with law enforcement when a person goes missing after a documented date. The bill is still in early stages, but the movement around Sheena and Sade's supporters keeps pushing it forward. In parallel, the family is consulting with attorneys about a civil suit against the platform through which the meeting was arranged. The family's representatives say the question is still open. The main goal isn't financial compensation, but a change in safety rules. The lawyers are studying similar precedents in the United States and comparing them to Sade's case. Maxwell Anderson, meanwhile, is in the Wisconsin Department of Corrections system. He's been transferred to a maximum security facility where inmates serving life sentences are held. Per protocol, he's housed apart from the general population. His contacts are limited, his movements are limited, his correspondence is limited. The prison administration, according to local journalists, classifies him as a high-profile inmate, someone whose name carries too far beyond the walls. In his file, there's a separate flag, a high risk of incidents, both from other inmates and from the convicted man himself. His attorneys have officially filed an appeal. In it, they're contesting the prosecution's key moves: the seat experiment, the admissibility of the deleted photos, the weight of Chloe Wright's testimony. The appeal review will take months, possibly more than a year. Sheena and her lawyers are getting ready for it like a new round. They're confident that nothing proven at trial can be undone. In one interview with a local station, Sheena talks about Anderson's possible new attempt to seek a review without any visible emotion in her voice. She already knows how this works. She'll be in the courtroom for every hearing. Information from inside the prison reaches the family. According to staff, Anderson rarely has visitors. He has almost no relatives willing to come for visits. On the yard, he keeps to himself, doesn't get into conversations, spends a lot of time in the library. Some cellmates call him quiet, others cold. It's the same trait journalists noticed in the courtroom: extreme self-control, with no trace of any inner reaction to what's happening. That's a trait he'll be carrying for decades now. Part of Sade's body and the exact instrument used have still not been recovered. The family keeps pushing for that last piece of her story to be filled in. Search teams periodically come back to the shore of Lake Michigan, especially after storms. Activists have combed the area around the secret beach on their own several times. Volunteer divers have searched at the mouths of the streams that flow into the lake. Canine units have walked the coastline of neighboring Illinois. Each time, not a single lead. Sheena Scarborough's take on it is simple. She isn't giving up the search, but she also won't let it eat the rest of her life. She has Adriana, she has younger relatives, she has the program she launched. Going on living, she says, is the only revenge available to her against the man who tore her family apart. Every time a journalist asks her about the missing piece of her daughter, she says the same thing. I'll accept her if she's found, and I'll accept it if she's never found. The main thing is that people remember. The city of Milwaukee hasn't forgotten her, and isn't going to. Pizza Shuttle has kept the mural on the wall of the shop. The country club where Sade worked in the evenings has hung a photo of her in the dining room. At the Town Place Suites by Marriott, her co-workers put together a small album of her shifts. At Milwaukee Area Technical College, a small plaque with her name has gone up on the wall of the Criminal Justice Department. Not a loud monument, not a loud speech. Quiet markers of the presence of a girl who is no longer here. And every April 1st, pink flowers reappear at the mural on the wall of Pizza Shuttle. They're brought by the people who knew Sade personally, and by people who first heard her name on the news. The flowers stay there until evening. The next morning, some are taken away. The rest carried off by the wind. A year later, it all happens again. The story of 19-year-old Sade Robinson stopped being just a private family pain a long time ago. It has become a memory belonging to the city, and it's that memory that keeps this case from turning into one line in an archived report.